Right. Right. Um, I'm listening to the Yankee game too. I can hear it in the background. They're actually losing again. You know what? They were melting down today. Michael K's been melting down. I love it.
He got swept by the Red Sox.
Oh, that was awesome.
Family members that were quite devastated by that fact.
You know what they were saying today? They're like Don LaGreca is his assistant on the show, and he's like, "Well, where do you guys go from here? Do you like break up the team, or do because they were saying if they don't make the playoffs, Cashman's job might be gone." And Kay goes, "Well, I put nothing off the table. That could happen." And he goes, "Well, what do you do if you bring somebody else in? You're going to change the whole parameter, and he's going to rebuild. And do you want to not make the playoffs for a couple of years?" Well, no offense. Even though the Yankees won 27 times, baseball's been around for over 100 years. That means about almost 80 times they didn't win. And when I was a little kid, they stunk. When CBS owned them, they stunk. These Yankee fans are getting so, and even the people that are working for them are getting so carried away with it. Their heads are getting too big. They think that they're meant to be great every year, and they're not. And you know what? George is dead. And so is the Yankee universe because of it. And I said that 25, 30 years ago. I told my friend, because he's a Yankee fan. I said to him, I go, as soon as George dies, the Empire's dying with it. And that's exactly what's happened. You know what? They're going to end up firing Cashman sooner or later. And you know what? Like LaGreca said to Kay, he's like, well, how should you get out of it? Should you spend more money? Because if you do that, then you're basically saying that you only ever won because you had the most money spent. Well, guess what, Junior? That's right. Because you know why? That's what George did. He pumped money in every year, whether it worked or not. It worked more times than not. And even when it didn't work, they were right there. That's what it's about. And they're like, so LaGreca goes, so the core four doesn't mean anything if you go down that road. Yes, it does. Because my argument's always been this with them. The core four was big. But it's like a farm. So one year you're going to have a bumper crop in the farm. It's like a real farm. And that's what it was. It was a bumper crop with those guys. And then at the end of the year, if they needed extra, he'd go out and get the big free agent with the money. Because if he never did that, the core four would have never won anything. They would have been great individually, but they wouldn't have won anything. They needed that extra loot and get those stars in there to put them over the top. The Yankees have always been about money. They've always had the most, and they always bought the most players. That's why they won. So for Kay and LaGreca to go, well, it was the farm system. No, it was never the farm system. Shoot, you took Joe DiMaggio from the Pacific Coast farm system and stole him away. You paid them all kinds of money to fly him 3,000 miles because he's from California, or he was. You pretty much stole him away because you had more money. The Pittsburgh Pirates couldn't even buy their own uniforms every year. You had to pay for them. You threatened the Pirates. You should have been called the Pirates. You threatened the Pirates. Oh, if you don't give us your best player, you don't get nice unis because we got the money and you don't. It's always been about the money, Rob. And one more thing, even the Yankees have fallen for this. Oh, it's so important to have a great farm system. No offense, but farm systems are just like straights. You go for a certain amount of years where you got one and then you don't. That's the way it goes. It's always been about the best player. The ones who make it, they become the stars. They get paid the most by, well, back then it was George. But see, now Hal doesn't want to do that. The son doesn't want to do it. So they're stuck and they're crying about it. They're upset. They're losing to the Angels tonight, by the way, which I love. I hate the Yankees, folks, just to let you know. I'm a Met fan, so. But I told the girl today on Twitter. She goes, "What's the matter with them?" I go, "News flash. They're not that good, and Jeter's not coming back to save you. You see the pinstripes every night, but you don't realize the guys in the pinstripes are different guys. You just assume we're the Yankees, we're privileged, we get the trophy. No, you don't. No, you don't." I love it. And the Red Sox, how about, you know what's funny too? The Red Sox traded their best player, and 2 years ago, Michael Kay was gloating. They're old. They're going to get rid of Betts. They're going to be finished. They traded so many, and he's a great player. He helped the Dodgers win it. He helped the Dodgers win it. But they gave him so many great players because the Dodgers now the Dodgers have the good farm system. They have the bumper crop this year. They gave them all to the Red Sox, and those guys are playing amazing. That's why they're in first place. They're all young kids, too. So now the Yankees can't go, oh, they're old. They're not old. And they're talking about trading Aaron Judge in a month. How about that? This is like my dream, Rob. I'm so happy.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, the Yankees haven't been. It's not like they haven't been competitive recently. They've made runs in the playoffs. They just haven't had the World Series.
Right.
I don't see why they haven't tweaked what they were doing. The year they lost the Astros, what was that, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
They
Couple
were
years ago.
awesome. They were one of the best teams, maybe the best team, arguably. They just didn't win that series. I don't see how what has happened between now and then that's caused this collapse.
I can tell you, they've gotten rid. They've gotten rid of players that were gamers, that could hit home runs. They got Encarnacion. I was scared. The guy used to kill them. They had other power hitters that were on their team, and because they were getting older or they just didn't want to, they let them go. The Mets did that in the early 90s. They had all these great players, and they started to get rid of them one by one. And they started replacing them with guys that weren't as good, that they thought were good, but they weren't gamers. Nelson Cruz, who I love, he was on the Texas Rangers when the Rangers got in the World Series 2 years in a row. And when in the Girardi years, I believe, and he would clock the Yankees every time he came up. So last week, the Yankees go to Minnesota, and the Yankees kill him the first two games, and they're killing him in the ninth inning. They're up by 3 runs in the ninth. The game ends like this: base hit, home run by Gano. He's their best player, and Chapman was on the mound. So all of a sudden, it's 3-2 Yanks. Next pitch, base hit, right? Then Nelson Cruz comes up. Boom! He hits that thing so far, they're still looking for it in the trees. Boom! They win 4-3. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. You have to know who the guys are. It's almost like with Price. Like I say the same thing about Price, Rob. You got to know who the stars are and how good they are. And, my brother's a Canadian fan. He's telling me Price stinks. He doesn't. No, my guy stunk. What I thought was funny, we were on the show and somebody called in to make me talk about Rask again. But you know what? The bottom line is you have to know who's great and who's not. You can see it in the players. When the Yankees got swept this weekend, I watched the game yesterday, and Kay said, "Oh, the Yankee clubhouse, they lost their first 2 games, but they were okay with it." And then Kay goes, "But I don't know if they should be okay with that." And Paul O'Neill was up, in the booth. He went, "I wouldn't have been." Yeah, he would have hit somebody with a bat because Paul was that tough. He wouldn't have took losing. And he goes, "I'm worried, concerned," because he goes, "When I look at it, the Royals should have beat us 2 out of 3." And he's right. I watched that second game. They should have won it. They blew it in the 8th inning. But you know what? You have to know who the great players are, Rob. That's what it is. And I can see who they are in every sport pretty much. You know what I'm saying?
So what is it literally just a matter of trying to save money that you would not pursue them?
Yeah, you know what?
And
Sometimes
kind of dabble in this, we're going to grow the farm system.
that's half of it.
All this long-term speculating.
Yeah, that's half of it, Rob. But the other half is, you'll cut somebody and you'll think, I'll just replace him with someone who's just as good because he's got good numbers. But the good numbers doesn't mean he's just as good. It doesn't mean he's a gamer. There's a lot of guys that are just okay with good numbers. And I told you, Stanton is Dave Kingman. I told you. I mean, he hit a home run tonight, but he's Dave Kingman. So did Dave Kingman. 48 home runs a year, 200 strikeouts, and made every big out you can imagine to kill over. He was the rally killer. I used to call him the rally killer. And that's what Stanton is. And today, LaGreca was talking, who did the Yankees get rid of? How can they get rid of Stanton? Right, how can they? He's making so much money. And now he's everybody can see him because he's in New York. They know, the other teams know he's not that good. So they're not going to take him. My hope is just one team isn't stupid enough to do it. But there's always one team stupid enough to do it. Because a lot of those teams don't care about winning. They just care about home runs and getting people in the stands. That gets people in the stands. You know what I'm saying? See, I want to win. And that's what I told the girl. I go, newsflash. Her name is Shannon. Shannon, newsflash. Your team stinks. That's the reality of it. They stink. And I love it. And I go, I'd love to work for you guys, but I have to be paid a lot. Because I'm a Met fan. You have to pay me a lot to save your neck now.
Well, what's going on with the Mets, Bob? No. after the Yankees received that bashing from you? What's going on with the Mets?
Well, I'm a Met fan, but the worst Met critic too. The truth of the matter is they can't hit, Rob. I'm still like, we have the owner now, like Steinbrenner. I was expecting him to do a lot of the stuff Steinbrenner. The first year he didn't do it. Well, come to think of it, Steinbrenner didn't do it the first year either. But you know what? We just can't hit the ball. We're gonna finish in first place. We're gonna make the playoffs because Philly stinks, Washington stinks, the Marlins stink. They all stink. It's not that we're great; they stink, and we're just gonna stay there because they stink. We can, and with DeGrom, he's amazing. Oh, with DeGrom, he's amazing. I mean, if the Mets let him pitch, let's get him past the 3 innings. And that's another thing. Did you see the other night that the Dodgers got no hit from 3 different pitchers? They took the guy out with pitching a no-hitter in the 6th inning. And then they're bragging about this world has gotten so confused. It's even trickling into sports now. They're doing all the wrong things. To practically see what we did? We took the starter out. And he was pitching, you could have lost. Just ask Tampa Bay Rays. Because they took out Snell in that World Series, and that's why they lost. How dumb can you be? If I was the pitcher, I would take that ball, throw it at the manager's head, say, I ain't coming out. Get your tail back on the bench. Because that is ridiculous. But as fate would have it, the Dodgers didn't get a hit that night, no matter who was pitching. But still, you don't do it as a rule. It's ridiculous. I mean.
So how does that work, Bob? Does that mean he was credited with the no-hitter because there were no hits after he was taken out?
I think you have to pitch 9 to do it. So they have a new stat, a dual no-hitter. I don't even know what that means, Rob. They're making this analytics has got to go, Rob. You know what they said the other night? They told, and Paul O'Neill's in the booth, and they're talking about it. Okay, he's like, the analytics say that if you strike out, that's the best out to make. O'Neill almost he goes, I'm looking at this, I'm shaking my head. He goes, I took pride in not striking out. This is insane. He goes, we got to try to figure this out.
Well,
he goes, it's a better out than
how does one make a rational argument that a strikeout is the
preferred remember out? Everything he said. He actually broke it down.
I mean, that kind of claim. You're going to need to prove yourself if you're going to say that, because that on the surface sounds just asinine.
It is asinine. And you know
what do you gain from a strikeout?
Right. And he was trying to say a pop out, you'd be better because you'd be swinging. It didn't even make sense what he was talking about. And like the one thing I know, a walk in either the beginning or the middle of an inning is the catalyst for a big inning. A strikeout is the rally killer. They're the complete opposites. And that is not good. And O'Neill's like, he's sitting there going, well, we got to try to figure this out. I'll tell you how to figure it out. Go back and play baseball and tell the scientists to go to hell. That's how you figure it out, because they're dumb. They're scientists. They're not baseball players. Shut up. You know nothing. You never played before. Shut up. The science is always right. Well, it ain't today. Shut up. It's ridiculous.
Well, that scientist is clearly wrong. I'm very confident you would find a consensus rebuttal against that claim.
No, you know what's scary? There's a lot of people that are God bless you. There's a lot of people that are on board with this now and believe this nonsense. That's the scary part. They think it's right.
Well, I mean, there are people on board with the flat Earth theory too. So I guess I'm not surprised that there are people on board with the strikeout theory of preferable outs in baseball.
I know. It's just, but you know what? The 100 pitch count started with a scientist. You know that? Do you know that? A guy decided that if the minute you throw 101 pitches, you increase your odds for getting hurt. So they're protecting pitchers. And now there's more Tommy Johns than ever before. What the hell?
They're imposing excessive objectivity onto a game that is inherently subjective in nature, along with it being, it has its objectivity, of course, but it's inherently subjective too. If a pitcher's feeling it, if he's on, you leave him on.
It's a simple game, Rob. It's sports. You don't overcomplicate it. This is where we all collide in the outfield, where the X is. This is ridiculous. This is where we'll run into each other just for fun. No, stop. I mean, it's just it's.
Catch the ball first and then collide with each other.
Yes. Then we all go to the hospital. Have a good night. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, They're ruining the game. Like they're making up rules as they go along. We're going to put a guy on second base, but we're not going to bunt him the third in the 10th inning. Gee, I'll tell you what, I'd have my power hitter bunt in the extra inning. Bunt. Why? Because then we only need an out to score so we can win. Bunt. How simple can it be? Or chop. Like they used to do the Baltimore chop. They would take the bat and chop it right through the open hole. Do it. I mean, the whole thing's a joke.
Is the chop still legal?
Oh, yeah. You could take that. You could take a bet. Yes. You could just go chop at it. Absolutely. That's never been changed. I mean, it's a total joke. And, like, I don't know. I'm going to get into trouble for this, but did you see what Scottie Pippen said tonight?
I did not,
on the
Bob.
Dan Patrick show?
I did not.
He called, are you ready for this? Phil Jackson racist.
Really? How did he?
Well, he said
how did he back up that statement?
Well, remember the game when, Scotty, the 2-year-old baby who thinks he's better than Jordan, and actually said that once? Yeah, right. He's not even one of the best 50 ever. Okay, let's be real. The man couldn't shoot for the first 5 years of his career. He had to take bank shots. He said that Kukoc, he put Kukoc in because he was white. No, Kukoc was just better and he was jealous. He could shoot, and Scotty couldn't. They needed offense. And Scotty's best year ever was when Jordan went to play baseball. And even then, they didn't win. The Knicks took him out. But all those other years, he would have never been able to do it when he was younger because he wasn't good enough. That year, he was in his prime. But even then, he only did it 1 year. You know what? No. Phil Jackson played with a lot of African Americans with the Knicks, and pretty much the whole team with the Bulls was, and the Lakers, and all this. You're just a little bitch baby. And we're not cutting this, folks. You're a little baby, and you need to grow up. You won 6 rings because of your buddy. And there were times when you actually were pretty good at it, too. So why don't you just enjoy it and shut? You see with the mindset people are going today? It's ridiculous. They're racist no matter what. This bull has got to stop. And it's got to stop.
Well, has Scotty ever hinted at these kind of statements in the past? I mean, this accusation?
No, he really hasn't. He was back then. He was just, I didn't want to go and I had a headache. That's what he was. Everybody all of a sudden is racist. So this is where it's coming from. Stuff like this, people never thought of in the past. You know why? Because it wasn't true. That's why. They're trying to make it true and push this ridiculous nonsense. It's time to cut it. Time to cut it.
Well, I hope Phil Jackson is allowed and does defend himself because.
Yeah, and Phil, you can come on the show and defend yourself. How about that?
To go publicly and claim that Phil Jackson is a racist or has said racist things, that's very damaging. And I hope Phil speaks. I hope Phil counters that with his perspective.
You know what? It's so unfair. The NBA has always been good to black players. Always. Even way back. Always. This is a bunch of bunk. And most of the players today are black, so how can you be? Even most of the Bulls were. It's ridiculous. And he played with the Knicks. Half the team was black. Walt Frazier would totally disagree with him, I'm sure. That is ridiculous. And you know what? Phil, you ever want to come on? You can come on and defend yourself here. Because you know what? This thing it's got to stop. It's dividing us, and they're doing it purposely, and this crap's got to go. It's got to go. Well, you know what? My friend said I should be a little more controversial tonight. I'm doing it. And you know what? I'm tired of this nonsense. It just makes him look like an even bigger baby than we already knew he always was. He needs to grow up. And
well, I hope this is. I hope this could turn a million ways, mostly against Phil Jackson, unfortunately. And I hope that whatever has been said, it's addressed point blank, no holds barred. And I'd like to see Scotty and Phil on live, maybe on this show, just talk this out and go and discuss what Scotty's saying. And because you know what, I never heard of such a thing, and the fact that you just threw that out there, I'm pretty shocked. I'm struggling to comprehend all of it.
Yeah, and it's classless on his part. And I'll tell you something else. Anybody that says you're prejudiced has no right to say it because they can't read your heart. They don't know what you're thinking. They have no right to say it, and they're doing it on purpose. And a lot of simple minds like Pippen will buy into it and say, oh, no, my feelings might be hurt too. Your feelings were hurt when you weren't put in the game, you little 5-year-old. Grow up. And you know what? Kukoc won the game. That part you never lived down either because he hit the shots that you didn't. You know, and Kukoc was a great player, I got to tell you. And I'm sure Tony's pretty ticked about it, so wherever he is. You know, it's just a joke, and it's sickening. It's sickening.
Well, it's sad, you know, all these years later, I mean, that Bulls dynasty was the 90s. So to color it with these kind of accusations, whether true or not, it's just sad. I mean, the Bulls were something to watch. Even if you weren't a Bulls fan,
it's not true. I'm telling you straight out, it's not true. He had no right to say it. He was just being a jerk for a jerk's sake. That's what he did. There was no reason for him to throw anything like that out. For any reason. And why was the whole thing brought up? It was 30 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
People, you got to remember, Bob, that there's always this search for the controversial soundbite to play over and over and over.
Rob, you know what? They're mad at us.
That's what the sports media. That's what the media does in general when they are interviewing someone or has anyone on.
Well, you know what? Chance is mad at us because we don't get into it more. But we're going to do a nice show regardless. Chance actually started fighting with me again.
I mean, I don't know what Chance.
He's like,
I don't know what Chance is talking about now. I mean, Bob Spino just went on, just laid it out for you. I mean, that's pretty controversial. You just said Pippen's full of it, and he's a big baby, and Phil Jackson is exonerated. You've definitely stoked the controversy, Bob.
I hope everybody watches the show too. And you know what? Because we're not taking this one off. We're not cutting anything. And you know what? Chance was down the field the other day, and he was talking about the players being paid again. I go, Rob and I went over that on the phone a few years ago when we did a show. And he goes, oh, that's what we need. And he's like, and he's trying to say they should be paid. I go, no, they shouldn't. In college, I go, it's a privilege. They shouldn't. And he goes, but I go, there ain't no but. You're not the college. You're not the company. They're allowed to pay you what you're worth and nothing more. If it goes anything past that, you're a greedy slob. And he goes, but that's what you should be talking about on the show. I go, we already did. We already did. You know, but I said, are you watching the show? He goes, wow. I go, well, maybe if you watched it, then you would have heard it, you know. And I love Chance. But everybody wants us to fall into that ESPN trap. Tonight I said it because it was disgusting what he did. But as a rule, you know, it's gonna be a good show, and
we don't set our guests up for failure.
No,
we're not here to try to get the inside dirt on them or get them to say something condemning someone else to stoke a controversy or get the Twitter sphere going. That's not what the show's up. This is about, you know, people coming together, just talk sports, lighthearted, lay it all on the table. Just a couple guys, maybe a couple gals sitting around the table, shooting it up, shooting the shit, talking about sports, let us just sharing our opinions, saying what we have to say, sharing what we have to say about what's going on. That's it. It's not about the gotchas. It's not about look what he said, look what she said. None of that.
That's what I had planned from day one. And tonight we're doing it, Rob, because one, how pathetic he was, and two, we're alone. So I'm not going to turn around and set up any guy. We love to have them on, and I got to tell you, everybody that's been on loved it. Gary Adams had me on the phone yesterday. He goes, how should I explain your show? I go, well, what did you do? And he goes, I loved it. It was this. And I go, so when you talk to Chase Utley, that's what you tell him.
That's it.
Yeah.
And we'll let Chase Utley, steer the ship. It'll be Chase's show. What does he have to say? What do we need to know?
I got to tell you, Rob, he's very shy and he's hard to get on because Gary told me that. He's not going to be. He's very quiet and he's to himself, And he's working with the Dodgers, and he doesn't really have a title officially, actually. But
so stay tuned, folks. We got more guests coming. Chase Utley is definitely on deck. Who else we got potentially on deck before we close?
We have John McLaughlin, who Pat McBride knew. Pat talked about him. He blocked the shot, remember? And then he made like 100 in a row on him. He was with the Lou Alcindor team, now Jabbar, and won the championship. And he was with my brother for a couple of years with the Bucks. He's a sharpshooter, and he was a great player. And I think his number's retired in Milwaukee. He's Mr. Milwaukee. They call him that. He was a sports announcer right up until now. Marcus Johnson just took his place. And they're both coming on. Marcus is coming on too. And Mark's getting the Hall of Fame this year. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So we have him coming on. We're going to have we're going to have Pete Sampras on because Wimbledon's coming or here and US Open's coming. And we're going to have Pacquiao on. And I got to tell you guys, I haven't even talked to my Nashville guy. So we're going to have music people on because I know somebody who runs the Country Music Awards. He was Warner Brothers Records president for 40 years. So I haven't even, and Neil's a great guy. Neil Goldberg. We're gonna have him on, and we're gonna have him bring rock stars on. And of course, we got Michael Jordan coming on, and Derek Jeter. We're going up to see him. And by the way, all the stars are going to be up there. So Tim Mead called me, Rob, and he's going to get us the tickets to make sure we got them. And he may even give All-Star tickets. I'm going to call him back on that. He's talking about All-Star game. So, yeah, we do. I mean, we're not playing around with this. We're going to do it. And
you heard it, folks. Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter. These are the guys that are coming on. So stay tuned.
Yes.
Like, subscribe, spread the word. Tell your friends. Let them, hey, the Sports Show with Bob Spino. Who he's got on here? We're going to have Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter, Chase Utley. Like and subscribe, folks. We appreciate it. Signing off here on the Sports Show with Bob Spino. This is Rob.
Bob.